Hey, I'm Olivia,
And hey, I'm Dad.
and you're listening to Soarin' Around WDW. What's up, flight crew? It has been a minute since I have used that noise, and that noise means it is time for some Disney news. Today's episode is a little bit shorter with Dad going through all of the different Haunted Mansion attractions across the world, but first I wanted to hop on because as I was editing this episode, a bunch of Disney news dropped, so wanted to get into a little bit of it with you guys before the episode today. The first thing is that Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin officially is reopening on April 8th. The awesome thing that I noticed about this, other than yes, they updated the targets, you are able to move your gun now, it's going to be a new and updated experience, is that on the photo at the end of the ride, it will show not only your score from your ride that day, but also your rank. They'll have your rank first, the score that you got, and the total targets hit, as well as the special targets hit. So that is a really cool addition. I hope that they consider doing this for attractions like Toy Story Mania or Web Slingers or other attractions around the world at Disney, because I think that's just a really neat addition to the Photo Pass option for this attraction. Obviously, these other attractions do not have Photo Pass like Toy Story Mania, but something to consider for the future for sure. Disney Junior Mickey Mouse Clubhouse Live will open up on May 26th along with the Walt Disney Studios Courtyard. This is extremely exciting because we have been waiting for news about this courtyard and exactly when it would open. And honestly, this is sooner than what I had originally anticipated. So that is very exciting. Soarin' Across America will also debut this day over at Epcot. Of course, we are very excited about that. And Bluey's Wild World at Conservation Station will debut then too. We just finished up at Animal Kingdom. Y'all will hear more about that in the coming episodes on our trip recap, but it definitely is an exciting time. Lots of construction going on over there. With that being said, looks like we are still on track for a 2027 opening date as of now for both Tropical Americas and the new Indiana Jones attraction. Nothing really much else has been said about those attractions. We haven't really seen any new concept art recently, so we'll see when we hear more about that, but the construction is definitely happening over there. It was busy when we were over in Animal Kingdom. Over behind the construction walls, we could see all kinds of equipment working hard to make those areas great for us when they open. The summer deals and discounts for Florida residents have dropped, as well as annual pass holders and everyone else, plus free dining plans for the whole family. Get with your travel agent for more details. I've been talking to Katie, my travel agent at 2+3 Travelers daily this week, trying to nail down my plans for a September trip with Regan. I'm very excited about that. So what's missing from this list of things opening? Big Thunder Mountain. Where is it? When is it opening? They had said spring and May 2026 potentially, and I would have thought they had said spring, and I thought May 2026 would be the latest that would still be considered spring before we move to summer. So the fact that they didn't announce an opening date with the rest of these attractions makes me think, number one, they're just going to say, surprise, it's open without a big announcement. Or number two, it's going to get pushed again. And it's been a really long time. This attraction was down all of 2025 and now has been down the first 3 months of 2026. So it is taking a long time to get this refurb up, but I know it will be so worth it. This is one of my favorite attractions across all 4 parks. I really love it. So here's to hoping that it will be opened and announced soon. Really hoping that by September when we go, it should be open, right? It should be open, guys. So we'll see. Another thing that was missing from the announcements list, no update for Muppets Mayhem, and that could be because that does say summer 2026, so it really could be a little while before we hear anything more about this. Hoping that will be, again, by the time we are there in September, because to me, September's starting to push towards fall. So if they get the fall decorations out, if the Halloween party starts, that's fall to me. It's no longer summer. So we'll see if they end up updating us on that here shortly. As well, going over to the other coast, At DCA, we also found out that the Monsters Inc. dark ride called Mike and Sully to the Rescue is going to be open through 2027. So why is this important? I'm not sure if that means that we won't see any kind of opening on Monstropolis before then, which I didn't think we were going to see it before 2027, but if we won't see it in 2027 at all, or kind of like where we're at in the timeline of Monstropolis or Monsters Inc. land opening over in Hollywood Studios. I have heard rumors, I don't know that this is confirmed, that they plan on using some of the animatronics from Mike and Sully to the Rescue over in Monstropolis. So if that's the case and that attraction's not even closing at all this year, that means they're really not going to be to the point where they need them until 2027. And so that makes me wonder if that's a little bit behind schedule or kind of what's going on there, or if they're just trying to maximize the amount of time that they have that space open over in DCA. That also means the construction for Avatar will not begin at all until next year, really, is my understanding, because they need that space, right? So it's interesting. There's a lot of moving pieces. Josh D'Amaro is going to be, as of this episode coming out, in office as of today. So it will be interesting to see kind of where he is, where everything lands with him pulling the ranks. And I know he really is demanding a lot of quality change on the attractions in the park. So we will see what happens. We also plan to see Hoppers in the theaters in the coming weeks. So we likely will do a bonus Patreon episode on that once we see it. But that is it for Disney news that I wanted to talk about. Just a little brief update. Share your thoughts with me in the comments or over on Instagram, and get ready for a great episode about the Haunted Mansion starting right now. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We are back this week after a little Haunted Mansion hiatus because of all of our awesome trip content that we've had for you guys the last couple of weeks. And more trip content is coming up, so if that's your jam, stay tuned. But today we are going to get back into our Doom buggies and begin our journey around the world to different versions of the attraction that you can find across the globe. This series went from a planned 2 episodes to me thinking it would be 3 episodes to now it will definitely be 4 episodes. Every time I dive into this attraction's history, I find even more what I would consider fascinating information, and it's just too good not to share it all. So today we're really solely going to focus on the variations of the attraction across the globe, as they all have a lot of differences. And then next week we will get into the holiday overlays, films, and our personal stories. I believe that will only be 1 episode, so really that truly should be our final episode. So today, let's start off with the different versions of this attraction across the globe. I also have been trying to insert more photos of kind of what we're talking about over onto the YouTube version of the podcast. It does not always happen, but I'll definitely be putting pictures of each exterior attraction and some other things that I've found onto YouTube for this episode if you are listening or watching that way. If you missed the first few episodes of this series or did not know, Disneyland opened its Haunted Mansion attraction first in 1969, many years after the park first opened its gates. But then Walt Disney World was the second version to open after the original at Disneyland. Walt Disney World's version opened on October 1st, 1971 in Liberty Square. This version features a Dutch Gothic architectural style and includes unique scenes not found in Disneyland's version. We've obviously already talked a lot about this version, so we won't get too much more into depth here.
Tokyo Disneyland. This version is based on the Disneyland's ride, but incorporates unique elements and storytelling, and the outside facade and interior story looks most like the Walt Disney World version. Tokyo's version opened on April 15th, 1983, and its history is a little unusual compared to the others. Originally, this Haunted Mansion was actually planned for Western Land, Tokyo Disneyland's version of Frontierland. But that plan changed when Disney decided the space would be better used for Big Thunder Mountain instead. Part of the reasoning behind this move ties into Japanese culture. Ghost stories in Japan are often seen as an extension of fairy tales, which made Fantasyland a more appropriate home for the attraction. Because of that decision, Tokyo's Haunted Mansion ended up in Fantasyland, making it the only version of the attraction to live squarely in a fairy tale setting. At its core, Tokyo's Haunted Mansion is nearly identical to the Magic Kingdom's version in Florida. The layout, ride system, and many scenes are the same, but there are some notable differences.
One big distinction is that Tokyo's version never received the post 2005 updates that were added to the American parks. Because of that, it preserves several scenes and design elements that no longer exist elsewhere, making it something of a time capsule. In 1992, the queue was expanded with a new addition, an unfinished wing or guest house. This wasn't just for storytelling. It was also designed to block views of Splash Mountain and Grandma Sarah's kitchen in the newly built Critter Country. One of the biggest mysteries of Tokyo's Haunted Mansion is where it's actually set. Because it's in Fantasyland, a place that's intentionally anachronistic, it's hard to pin down a specific location. Architecturally, the mansion resembles the Liberty Square Manor in Walt Disney World, which is styled after Dutch Gothic homes from the Hudson River Valley in upstate New York. That version was inspired by American ghost stories like The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So it's possible this mansion exists in a similar setting, loosely connected through Fantasyland's fairy tale logic. Another theory is that the mansion has no concrete location at all and instead exists in a shared fantasy world where stories and eras overlap. That interpretation may even explain the quote unquote famous ghosts that are seen in the mansion's portraits, particularly the Sinister 11. Physically, the building is a two-story brick and stone Dutch Gothic manor, complete with a tower and cupola above the doors. Though guests don't enter through them, instead you're brought in through the ruins of an unfinished wing. In real life, the mansion's design is based on the Joel Rathbone Estate, a real mansion built near Albany, New York in 1841 and demolished just a few decades later. The backstory suggests the mansion was once home to a family or possible an estate staff who all met tragic ends and were buried on the property. The mansion's ghost host, voiced in Japanese by Tichiro Hori, is implied to be a former resident or caretaker who died by suicide in the cupola and now narrates the attraction. The attic is home to the bride, who in this version appears in her beating heart incarnation rather than the Black Widow storyline used in other parks. Her backstory is intentionally vague, though during the Disney Story Beyond event, she was temporarily identified as Constance Hatchaway.
Now, I know we said this one mostly mirrors its Orlando sister, but Tokyo's Haunted Mansion features several exterior differences that set it apart. Griffin statues guard the gates, tying the attraction visually to Fantasyland. The queue is styled as a crumbling, unfinished wing of the mansion. The fountain features the classic devil head, but its usual placement is replaced by a wailing skull. A broken spear juts through one of the mansion's windows. Tombstones feature unique names not seen in other parks, and some graves appear freshly dug. Inside the ride, there are even more variations. The ghost host is fully redubbed in Japanese. Instead of changing portraits, guests pass through a hallway of the Sinister 11, whose eyes glow green, something Magic Kingdom removed years ago. Rather than the endless staircase, this version features a giant spider scene, complete with massive animatronic spiders, a sequence long removed from Florida. The corridor of doors includes a unique popping out ghost using a reused head mold. In the attic, instead of a wedding portraits, well-dressed corpses pop out of hat boxes, adding a different tone to the bride's story.
In 2023 and 2024, the mansion was also part of the Disney Story Beyond interactive experience, which introduced original characters, scavenger hunts, and expanded lore, including officially naming the bride during one of these events. One last fun detail, the unfinished wing queue may be a direct reference to the Winchester Mystery House, a real mansion built under the belief that constant construction would confuse the spirits haunting it. Have you ever seen any actual footage of this attraction, Dad, or pictures of the Tokyo version?
Well, I must admit, I watched three different YouTube videos
Oh,
of three different haunted mansions right after work today. Because I started reading through this and I thought, well, sounds just like the one I remember in Orlando at Walt Disney World before they made all the changes. And
yeah.
so I watched it, and other than it being dubbed in Japanese, of course, it's almost identical. It's pretty amazing. Not exactly, a mirror image, but It has all the scenes. It has all the old scenes. It has a big, I always call it a big styrofoam spider at the staircase.
Yeah.
It has the bride with the red beating heart. Before
Mm-hmm.
they added all the other things they did there in 2005. So yeah, it's kind of like a time capsule, like you mentioned. It was cool. I wouldn't make a special trip all the way over to Tokyo to go see the Haunted Mansion because it's kind of like we're used to. But I
Yeah.
know there's a lot more there than just that. But yeah, I definitely checked it out.
So, what are your thoughts on it after kind of hearing a little bit more of the history? It sounds like very similar, but anything about it that felt unique or different other than it being dubbed in Japanese?
Well, the fact that it's tied into the ghost stories are tied into fairy tales more in
Yeah.
Japan, which is kind of cool. And each one of these countries that has a Disney World in it uh, is pretty much they had to follow what the culture um, would make it. I don't want to say appropriate, but so the people would be able to really relate to it more. It's the only way I could say it by
Yeah.
using their cultures and their different ways they view things because they're going to be different than the way we do things here. So I think that's great. That's my feeling. The fact that they're fairy tales, and there's a few different things that are different, but that's good because if we ever go visit there, it'd be nice to see something that's not exactly the same.
Yeah, definitely. So, what are your thoughts about it being put in Fantasyland? That is a choice. I was kind of surprised about that. I thought that was a very unique take.
Yeah, again, if ghost stories are fairy tales, Fantasyland works there. Even though
Yeah.
in our minds over here in the States, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, right? We're like, oh, wait a
Yeah.
minute, that should be, up by a graveyard out in the country somewhere or, something like that. But, if the shoe fits, wear it in this case. And that's how they wanted to do it. And I think that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely different.
And let's talk a little bit about Disneyland Paris. When people talk about the darkest version of the Haunted Mansion, they're almost always talking about Phantom Manor at Disneyland Paris. Phantom Manor opened with Euro Disneyland in 1992 and is located not in Fantasyland or Liberty Square, but deep inside Frontierland, overlooking Big Thunder Mountain. Unlike most haunted mansions, which keep their stories vague and open ended, Phantom Manor has a fully defined narrative and it's a deeply woven into the lore of the entire land. In fact, Phantom Manor and Mystic Manor in Hong Kong are the only two haunted mansion style attractions with an official canon backstory. The story centers on Henry Ravenswood, a wealthy settler who struck gold in Big Thunder Mountain and founded the town of Thunder Mesa. At the height of his fortune, he built a lavish Victorian manor atop Boot Hill, where he lived with his wife Martha and their daughter Melody Ravenswood. Local legends warned that Big Thunder Mountain was home to the Thunderbird, a powerful spirit that would punish anyone who disturbed the mountain. Ravenswood ignored the warnings, and when the mines were pushed too far, disaster followed. Melanie grew into a beautiful young woman and attracted multiple suitors. One by one, they all met violent ends. In the original version of the attraction, these deaths were mysterious, but following a major refurbishment in 2019, the ride confirmed what fans had long suspected, that phantom haunting the manor is Henry Ravenswood himself. Determined that no one would ever take his daughter away, Henry murdered her suitors even after his own death, becoming the malevolent phantom who dominates the house. Now, kind of a neat thing about this that I saw on a YouTube video just the other day, Tony Baxter, another well-known Imagineer who just retired not all that long ago, um, he mentioned that they didn't call it the Haunted Mansion for the Paris version because Haunted Mansion means something obviously different in French, but they said when they used Phantom Manor is the same in French and English. So it just made
Ah.
sense to call it the Phantom Manor. It just worked. So that's just a little tidbit for you.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Tony Baxter is one of my favorite Imagineers, so that's pretty cool. So, unlike the playful or tragic brides seen in other haunted mansions, Melanie Ravenswood is a deeply unsettling figure. On her wedding day, her groom was lured into the attic and hanged by the phantom. Melanie waited in the ballroom for hours, then days, then years, never removing her wedding dress, never understanding why he never came. As the house decayed and evil spirits filled it, Melanie slowly lost her sanity. In the post 2019 version, her story takes an even darker turn. After death, her spirit becomes aligned with the Phantom, and she ultimately offers herself as a bride to the guests, trying to claim them as replacements for her lost loves. It's less happy hot, so to speak, and more romantic gothic horror. Phantom Manor is visually and structurally based on the original Disneyland Haunted Mansion, but nearly every scene is recontextualized through its Western setting. Guests enter through a visibly derelict mansion, unlike the pristine exteriors of the American versions. This is the only haunted mansion where guests actually enter through the front door. The stretching room reveals the fates of Melanie's suitors rather than playful sight gags. The Phantom serves as the role of the ghost host, but as a malicious, active villain rather than a sardonic narrator.
After boarding the Doom buggies, guests move through familiar scenes, the endless hallway, conservatory, corridor of doors, seance room, and ballroom, but each is twisted to support the Ravenswood story. The ballroom scene depicts Melanie's wedding reception frozen in time, attended entirely by 19th century ghosts from Thunder Mesa. Big Thunder Mountain itself looms outside the windows during the lightning flashes, reinforcing the connection between the ride and the land. Where other haunted mansions transition into a graveyard finale, Phantom Manor instead descends into Phantom Canyon, a supernatural ruined version of Thunder Mesa created by the catastrophic earthquake. Here, guests encountered a ticket master offering passage to the underworld, a head tipping mirror inviting guests to become the thousandth ghosts, ghostly shootouts, saloons, and spectral townsfolk, references to the never built Western River expedition and abandoned Mark Davis concept.
This section replaces the traditional graveyard and makes Phantom Manor feel like a full narrative journey, not just a haunted house. Despite its darker tone, Phantom Manor is packed with direct Haunted Mansion DNA, such as the Phantom fills roles associated with the ghost host, caretaker, and even the hitchhiking ghosts. The singing busts return to perform Grim Grinning Ghosts. Madame Leota still appears in a seance scene tailored specifically to Melanie's doomed wedding. Dialogue by Paul Frees, the original ghost host, is reused for the mayor in Phantom Canyon. Even Melanie herself serves as a composite character, part classic bride, part Constance Hatchway, part Little Leota.
In 2019, Phantom Manor underwent a large refurbishment. However, that refurbishment didn't replace Phantom Manor's story. It clarified and intensified it. Henry Ravenswood was officially confirmed as the Phantom. Melanie's suitors were individualized and given specific deaths. Storm effects, lightning, and portrait transformations were added. And Vincent Price's original English narration, long thought lost, was partially restored alongside French dialogue. The result is a ride that feels more cohesive, more tragic, and more unsettling than ever before. While the American and Japanese haunted mansions invite you to laugh at the ghosts, Phantom Manor asks something different. It tells about obsession, control, grief, and decay, wrapped in Gothic romance and Western myth. It's not just haunted by spirits, it's haunted by a family tragedy that never ended. And that's why, when comparing haunted mansions around the world, Phantom Manor isn't just a variation, it's almost entirely a different genre.
So, how do you feel about this version? It's pretty different being set in Frontierland and more of a Western version. Do you like that? Do you dislike that? What do you think about that take on the attraction?
Well, after I watched the video, this is one of those 4K walkthrough videos where they're well outside and then they walk through the queue. And it was on a night that was like the place was empty. So the guy walking through with the camera had the kind of like the place to himself. I was surprised. It looked kind of like a rainy night. Maybe that's why. But it was so cool because the mansion is sitting up on a hill.
Yeah.
And in the distance, and not far away, is Big Thunder Mountain. So it's all kind of tied together. It's kind of like you think of a graveyard, not a graveyard, a haunted house up on a hill. It was, I think, the whole thing. To be honest, after seeing the dune buggy kind of ride through and the walk through, part in the beginning. I really like it. If I had to pick one I want to go see, I probably want to go see that one out of all the different ones that I've seen. Um, I thought it was very well done. I love the whole West thing. I really like the whole Western thing. Anyway, I live here down in Florida, and a guy from Michigan. We got out west a little bit a few years back, and I love the whole frontier land Western thing. And I think they really pulled it off. It's a little different. There's some scenes that are similar to our Haunted Mansion, but it has a great story. It's a little bit darker, but I think it's really well done. I think my feeling is it's probably one of the best haunted mansions that Disney's ever done.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's neat how they made it a Western take. It's not a carbon copy, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, but I like the take on it. I think it makes it very unique. Everyone I know that's been on this attraction has said it's one of the best versions for sure. And the story is just very different, which kind of makes it nice, but still has those tie-ins that make it feel like the classic Haunted Mansion attraction. So I agree. I think it's pretty cool. Before we move on, there's a really exciting fan project worth mentioning. There's a fan-made short film inspired by Disneyland Paris's Phantom Manor that is currently in production. It's called Phantom Manor: The Bride's Song, and while it was originally aiming for a 2025 release, there's no official release date quite yet, but I've heard it should be this year, 2026. That's mainly because the film is being created by a small team of volunteers, so progress really takes time, obviously. What makes this project so impressive is its scale. They had a budget of 40,000 euros. More than 24,000 euros was raised through crowdfunding alone. Over 10,000 euros of that went into recreating the iconic Ravenswood Manor facade, along with several other large scale sets built completely from scratch to accurately reflect the original attraction and its Victorian era aesthetic. Filming began back in 2024 in one of the oldest cemeteries in France, and most of the remaining shoots are kind of planned and happened throughout 2025. The story follows two men who arrive in the mysterious Victorian western town of Thunder Mesa decades after it was destroyed by an earthquake. As they dig into the town's past, their investigation ultimately leads them inside the manor itself, rumored, of course, to be haunted. The cast was surprisingly high profile ish for a fan project, featuring Vincent Grass from The Chronicles of Narnia, Rupert Wynne James from the Oscar nominated The Man Who Sold His Skin, and Frederic Souterelle, I'm sure I'm not saying this right because it's a French name, who has appeared in Marvel films and Pirates of the Caribbean. And Phantom Manor: The Bride Song is set to premiere on YouTube sometime this year after a run of festival screenings. There is a short teaser that has already been released, so I will link that in the show notes and description for this episode so that y'all can see it. We got the chance to watch it today, but it recreates one of the Phantom Manor's most iconic moments, the stretching room portraits, and it's a great indication of the love and attention for detail behind this project. So isn't this a super neat fan-inspired project? I'm so here for it. I sent you the teaser trailer that was dubbed over in English. So what did you think?
I thought it was great. It is a little spooky. It's a little dark. That's the whole
Yeah.
idea, I think, right? I mean, that's what they're
Yeah.
trying to get at. I mean, it's not like it's not like Freddy Krueger or something, from what I can gather, but
Yeah.
it's probably a little more tasteful than that. But yeah, I would it would be a movie I would definitely check out when it comes out.
Yeah, I personally would love to see more fan-made versions of different attractions like this made more often. I would pay to watch this. Like if someone made a fan-made version of what they think Expedition Everest is, that would be really cool. Or like just different attractions that they haven't already done big blockbuster hits. I love when people are super into the lore and stories behind the attractions and kind of create art from it. And I'm not a scary movie person, so it was definitely a little spooky. But even the more recent Haunted Mansion, which we'll talk about next week, the film with Owen Wilson was a little spooky. So it's like it kind of has to have a little bit of not horror, like you said, or like gory, but just spookiness to it for sure. So yeah, I thought it was really neat.
Next one we want to talk about is Hong Kong Disneyland. While it was a haunted mansion ride, it differs significantly in theme and concept from the others. As we continue our tour through the global haunted mansion family, we come to what might be the most important evolution of the concept. Mystic Manor at Hong Kong Disneyland. Mystic Manor opened in 2013 as a centerpiece of Mystic Point. And while it's clearly inspired by the Haunted Mansion, it's fundamentally different in tone, story, and even philosophy. In fact, it's the only mansion style attraction that completely removes ghosts from the equation. And that wasn't a creative gimmick, it was a cultural necessity. When Hong Kong Disneyland began planning a major expansion in the late 2000s, the park was noticeably small and lacked a true e ticket dark ride. Disney executives knew they needed something on the scale of Haunted Mansion, but a direct clone wouldn't work. In traditional Chinese culture, spirits of the dead are meant to be honored and respected, not played for scares or jokes. A ride full of comedic ghosts and graveyard gags simply wouldn't land the same way it does in the West. So Imagineers Joe Lanzero and Robert Coltrane went back to the first principles and asked a key question. What if Haunted Mansion wasn't about ghosts at all, but about magic gone wrong?
Instead of a haunted house, Mystic Manor is the home and private museum of Lord Henry Mystic, an eccentric British adventurer and founding member of the Society of Explorers and Adventurers, or SEA. Lord Mystic has spent his life traveling the world, collecting artifacts and antiques, and he opened his manor to guests to show off his latest finds. His constant companion is Albert, a mischievous monkey he rescued years earlier. A deliberate choice since monkeys are traditionally seen as clever tricksters in Chinese folklore. The story kicks off when Albert opens a mysterious enchanted box, unleashing magical energy that brings the artifacts through the manor to life. No ghosts, no afterlife, just chaos. Structurally, Mystic Manor shares Haunted Mansion DNA, but everything has been recontextualized. It uses a trackless ride system similar to the ride Pooh's Honey Hunt. The tone is more playful, adventurous, and escalating rather than eerie. The music was composed by Danny Elfman and acts as a narrative spine evolving room to room. Instead of a ghost host, Albert himself becomes the emotional anchor of the ride. You're not touring a haunted estate, you're chasing a runaway magical disaster.
After a detailed cue that introduces Lord Mystic, Albert, and the wider SEA or SeaWorld, including the now famous 1899 Society portrait, guests board the Mystic magneto-electric carriages, Lord Mystic's own invention. The ride begins calmly in the acquisitions room, where Lord Mystic mentions the music box, and then he leaves. That's when Albert opens it. From there, the manor erupts into motion. Musical instruments play themselves and set the ride's theme. Mediterranean paintings animate, including a Medusa portrait, a direct Haunted Mansion callback. A Slavic winter god freezes an entire room. Living arbor attacks the vehicles. Scarabs pour out of an Egyptian sarcophagus. Lava spewing tiki statues chant in rhythm. And finally, a massive Sun Wukong Monkey King statue tears a Chinese salon apart in a magical storm.
Throughout it all, the ride vehicles dance, spin, and reposition themselves with impossible fluidity, something only a trackless ride system could achieve. In the finale, Albert manages to slam the music box shut, restoring order just in time for Lord Mystic to return, completely unaware of what's happened. Even though Mystic Manor avoids ghosts entirely, it's packed with intentional nods, like busts that turn to follow guests, a conservatory scene, a Medusa transformation portrait, singing objects that echo the spirit of the graveyard bus. It also pulls in references to to attractions like the Enchanted Tiki Room, Tower of Terror, and other SEA connected attractions, retroactively turning Mystic Manor into the foundation of modern SEA storytelling. In many ways, Mystic Manor didn't just adapt Haunted Mansion, it redefined how Disney approaches original non-IP attractions. Mystic Manor is often described as Haunted Mansion for kids, quote unquote, but that really undersells it completely. It's not a watered down version, it's an evolution, where Haunted Mansion invites you to laugh with ghosts and Phantom Manor traps you in tragedy. Mystic Manor really invites you into a living, breathing story driven by character, motion, and music. It's playful, yes, but it's also technically groundbreaking, culturally sensitive, and narratively dense. For many fans and Imagineers, it's considered the best Haunted Mansion variant. According to many people who have been to all of the Haunted Mansion versions built, Mystic Manor is one of the greatest attractions that Disney has ever created.
One last fun bit of trivia that perfectly sums up how personal Mystic Manor is to its creators. The very first image guests see as they enter the attraction depicts a fictional opening day for Mystic Manor in 1916. If you look closely at the crowd, you spot some familiar faces because the Imagineer who created the artwork, Tim Landry, quietly painted himself and his wife Maureen into the scene. Even more charming, he also included a young Walt Disney and his brother Roy standing among the guests. It's a subtle Easter egg, but it speaks volumes. Mystic Manor isn't just a ride inspired by the Haunted Mansion, it's a love letter to Disney history, Imagineering, and the idea that original storytelling still has a place in the parks.
So, Dad, what do you think about this version not even having ghosts?
I can't. I did watch the YouTube video actually a couple times to make sure I had a kind of a grab on the Mystic Manor thing. Uh, to be brutally honest, other than I know there's a lot of great technology there, as far as the transportation system and everything that's in it. It's definitely a step up from a doom buggy, but I just didn't care for it. It didn't. It just didn't do anything for me. Maybe because there wasn't that spooky element.
Yeah.
That's probably part of it. I still think the Paris version, uh, Phantom Manor, still is just leaps and bounds ahead of anything else that's out there, even over her own. Hate to say that, over our own here in the States.
Yeah. Yeah. I also thought it was an interesting choice to kind of create this attraction in 2013 for the park. So long after the original attraction, when they were getting into this, mystic area of the park, I was surprised that they chose this to bring it in, especially knowing they wouldn't be able to do the ghost element because of the cultural, sensitivity of the country. I just thought that was so interesting that they decided to kind of create this so late instead of doing something totally different. But I agree. I think after watching the video, this was my least favorite version from what I could tell. Now, one of our friends over at Idiot's Guide to Imagineering, Steven, he is going to Hong Kong at the time that we're recording this. So by the time this comes out, he'll have already gone a little while ago. So I'm curious to hear his take on it because he's been to all the other versions of this attraction before. So, I'm curious what people who I know personally, I know a lot of people said, "Oh, it's really cool. The technology is really awesome," but the actual storytelling part of it, it'd be interesting to hear what people think about it in person. So after looking at, we'll do this kind of as our would you rather, I guess a little early, but after looking at Tokyo's Haunted Mansion, Phantom Manor, and Mystic Manor, which one would you want to ride? Which one would you rather ride next?
Yeah, I probably answered this ahead of time because I've said it a couple of times.
Yeah.
I, Phantom Manor for me is, if I had to just pick one, it would be Phantom Manor, hands down. Tokyo Haunted Mansion is just the same as what we have here, pretty much in Orlando. In Mystic Manor and the little monkey and everything just didn't do anything for me. It is a little bit of a kids attraction to some degree, or I guess it's kind of kid friendly. But yeah, it would definitely be Phantom Manor.
Yeah, I agree. That's also my first choice as well. I do think it's funny that, Tokyo Disneyland, it's in Fantasyland. It almost seems like Mystic Manor should be in a Fantasyland type setting more than the Tokyo's version. So I think that's kind of funny. But yeah, definitely an interesting take on the attraction. So if you could import one character from another park into the US Haunted Mansion, let's just say Disney World because that's our home park, who would it be and why?
I thought actually the Phantom from Phantom Manor, the skeleton,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you go down to the graveyard, he's there. And at the end of the graveyard, he's there with an open open casket, right? I think he's wearing a top hat or something, but he's real, it, I would bring the Phantom over to ours. I don't know how they would incorporate it, but I would like to see that in our haunted mansion.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. I definitely think the Melanie Ravenswood character, even though she's kind of like Constance Hatchaway, I like the little mix that they have of everything. So some way to incorporate her, or from the Mystic Manor version, I do think the character kind of from that, how they brought, or not the character, but how they brought in the Mystic Manor version, that little trivia piece at the end where they talked about this scene that they have hidden in there, Walt and Roy. I think that's super cool. So I kind of wish that they do something a little bit like that over in our area. But yeah, bringing that painting or something similar over to the US version, I guess that's not really a character, but I agree with you. The Phantom from Phantom Manor would be pretty cool. And I do think that in the Mystic Manor, Lord Mystic could be a character that they could like easily input somewhere to our attraction. So I know it would be kind of an easy rinse and repeat type attraction or copy paste attraction, but it is really cool how truly each version of the attraction has its unique experiences, background story, and location within the park. None of them are located on the map in the same area as the other one. So, over in Disneyland, it's in New Orleans Square. Ours is obviously over in Liberty Square. And then each one of these, so Tokyo Disneyland and Fantasyland, the Phantom Manor in Frontierland, and then Mystic Manor over in the Mystic section of Hong Kong. So I think that's, super neat that they kind of had them all in a different spot with all a little bit of a different backstory, so to speak, even though I know our US versions are a little bit more loosely themed or loose storytelling compared to the international versions. But yeah, so that's a little bit about each of the international attractions. I know this episode's a little bit shorter than usual, but I didn't want to combine it with the rest of the items that we have to go over because it would just make for a very, very long episode. Anything else, Dad, that you have to add about these different international attractions or overseas versions?
Well, I'm glad I got a chance to look at the YouTube videos and the ride throughs just recently, as actually today, and really appreciate what's going on in there. And now I want to go back and you know do the cheap version of riding through again, right? Instead
Yeah,
of going over there, I'll
very
just
cheap.
I'll just sit on my little recliner couch and go through the attractions. But it's a great way because the couple people that I do watch that do that, they do it obviously in 4K, so it's the uh, the video presentation is just really clear, really well done. They're not narrating through any of it; they just let it play out, and they show all the different scenes, and it's just done really well. And yeah, it's a fun way just to probably see attractions that there's a very good chance I'll never actually physically go see. I enjoy that.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think the point of view, like ride through rides, are cool. And I do think it's funny that now Disney Plus has kind of capitalized on that. And there's ride through attractions for Disneyland that are now on Disney Plus that are officially made by Disney. And
Mm-hmm.
our kids love to sit down and watch the ride through versions of attractions on Disney Plus from Disneyland. And some of them they've been on, and some of them they're not even big enough to go on. So, like Incredicoaster, they're not tall enough yet, but they'll sit there and watch the point of view and act like they're riding it and put their hands up on the couch and things like that. So they really enjoy stuff like that, which is really fun to see. So, but it's neat how many YouTubers are out there and have these good quality versions of ride throughs. Because it is funny going back and watching some of our home videos back in the day with the big camcorder riding through rides. And it's like a little bit chaotic, especially rides like Mr. Toad or Winnie the Pooh. You're kind of flying all over the place, and trying to get a good point of view was very difficult a long time ago. Now the technology has obviously been upgraded. But yeah, it's cool to see these different versions even if we never get to see them in person. So I agree. Okay, great. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us this week. We are heading into some different things. The next Haunted Mansion Treasured Attractions, the final episode, will kind of come out in between trip recap things and things that we have going on. We're kind of a little bit all over the place with the schedule because of the different trips that we have. So we'll be having some Disney World trip content coming out likely before the last part of Haunted Mansion comes out. That could change. So if you're listening to this and then next week it is part 4, ignore me. But as of right now, when we're recording this, I think it will come out a few weeks after this episode does. So stay tuned for that. And thank you guys so much for listening. We look forward to continuing our journey through the Haunted Mansion with the last and final episode, going through those holiday overlays, films, and our personal stories. For now, that is all for this week, and we will see you next time.
Have a great week.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram at Soarin Around WDW Pod, where we share fun reels, throwback photos, and dive into weekly polls and debates. If you're listening on Spotify, be sure to follow and hit that 5-star button. If you are over on YouTube, subscribe and leave us a comment as well. If you're listening on Apple, a 5-star rating and a written review would mean the world. You can also now support the show through our Patreon at patreon.com/SoarinAroundWDW podcast by becoming a free or paid member and finding exclusive content and bonus episodes and videos there too. Thanks again for joining us. Catch you on the next flight.